Welcome to the First Step podcast, where we chat with remarkable people about their personal and business adventures. Our goal is to give you little jewels of knowledge that you can adapt into your life to form your own destiny. Some of our guests will be familiar, others not, but the common thread is they had a plan and took the first step to getting where they are today. Here's your host, Narissa Show.
We're talking to Sarah Young, who is the founder of Vision Insight. Sarah has built her business around the revolutionary principles of growth mindset and leadership in the new world. Sarah's journey is quite unique, as she started in the UK, climbing the ranks within the finance sector, that culminated in her becoming a leader on a dealing floor of teams amongst 400 men and 2 women at the age of 21 before landing in Australia. Her personal corporate background includes negotiating over $700 billion in sales and trades and being the first executive female leader on the foreign exchange trading floors in London, again at the age of 21. Leading teams in a completely male-dominated and much older environment that closed deals in excess of $1 billion per week. Through her experiences and learnings, Sarah has created a highly regarded and sought-after business, with clients including Airbus, Star Entertainment, Westpac, ANZ, and the Reserve Bank of Australia. Vision Insight helps Australian businesses, companies, and public sector divisions get the best out of their people, leaders, and their organisations in these times. Vision Insight also consults with clients on creating an agile innovation environment, and some of the areas that they consult on are structure, processes, culture, recruitment, diversity, and inclusion. Now, I'm sure for any business owner, boards, management who are looking to shape their business and people resources differently and are looking at different ways of getting the best out of their people, then this is a chat you absolutely need to tune into. So hi Sarah, welcome to the First Step podcast.
Hi Narissa, how are you?
Fabulous, how are you today?
Good, thank you.
Fantastic. So I'm really excited about talking to you today about 2 topics that in themselves could be 2 different podcasts. The topics we're going to cover is discussing growth mindset and the changing landscape of leadership. Very exciting topics. So I think the best place to start and to give some context to our listeners is for you to tell us about your background, give us a snapshot of where you're from, where you grew up, the exploration and adventures you had before opening your own business, Vision Insight.
Okay, so I was born in East London. I always had a vision to work on a dealing floor from quite a young age. And it was a bit of a journey to try and get onto the dealing floor or any dealing floor, because at the time they were all very male dominated. And I joined a back office at the age of 19 and basically spent about a year trying to get out onto a dealing floor. In fact, it was probably 18. And after being knocked back by HR a couple of times and on my actual interview being told not to have aspirations, I eventually made it out there and decided to prove everybody wrong. And within the 2 years, I sort of built up a client base and got asked to be a manager at the age of 21, which was quite scary at the time, but I sort of just threw myself into it. I ended up managing teams for about 9 years. And then I hit a stage of my life where I decided I wanted to go and see the world. And I just went and bought a backpack and off I went on what was supposed to be a 6-month trip, ended up being 3.5 years. And part of that was Thailand, where I spent some time with some Buddhist monks and basically worked with them on a drug rehabilitation program and learnt about meditation and mindfulness. And I sort of incorporated some of that into what I do now in my programs. Post that, I basically went back to England, got into the world of recruitment for about 3 years, got married, had children, and the whole time festering in the back of my head was I'd sort of experienced the worst and the best culture and leadership, and this idea started ticking away in the back of my head that I wanted to start up my own company and try and make some form of a difference in changing that. Wow. And that's where I am now.
Wow, fantastic. So is that what led you into this line of work, and how did that all come about? Like, how long did it take for you to start your business once you had the idea, and what is it that you actually do for your clients?
Okay, so it probably took me about a year to really get a real plan formulated. Like I started off as a coach, but I was a lot more generalised. And I guess it was just I really worked out what my strengths were and where the gap was in the market and where I felt I was best able to fill it. So hence I moved into the leadership side of things. But then from seeing the leadership side of things, I got to experience a lot of rather unpleasant cultures. And I really felt I'd like to dive a lot more into that side of things as well, because, they're both as important as each other now.
Absolutely. So we hear a lot about, it seems to be a new term. I don't know if it is, but it feels like I'm hearing it more and more. What is a growth mindset for our listeners who've never heard of this term? How did it come about? What's it all about?
Sure. So it was conceptualized by a lady called Carol Dweck. She wrote a book called Psychology of Mindset. And it's been picked up quite heavily around the world. I absolutely loved the book. That's where I first discovered the concept of growth mindset. After delving into it, you see Michael Jordan is the poster child for growth mindset, and there's a lot of very high profile people around the world who are really into this. But what it actually is so a growth mindset individual believes that their talents and their intelligence just can continually grow. So their self-esteem isn't linked to it. So if they have failings, they have mistakes, that's fine. They're all learning experiences. If they're presented with challenges, they embrace them very readily, and in fact they actually seek out of their comfort zone challenges. If they come across setbacks, they navigate a way around them. They don't quit, and they're inspired by the success of others. And there's just one other element as well, because a growth mindset person believes that they can always continue to grow. They see effort as something that's absolutely essential, whereas on the other hand, a fixed mindset individual doesn't believe they can change and grow. They believe they are as good as they are today, and that's it. So they don't put effort in. They don't take on new challenges, which obviously is what's needed in today's environment. They often quit at setbacks, and then when they basically face criticism, they take it as negative feedback rather than an opportunity to learn. And then quite often what happens is they lose that feedback loop, so nobody wants to criticize them anymore. So, and then also when it comes to the success of others, they're actually often quite demoralized by it as opposed to inspired. So it's just a great mindset for cultures in the age that we're in now.
Absolutely. Okay. So this might be a redundant question, but in your opinion, what type of businesses benefit best with a growth mindset? Like we see the big businesses like Microsoft really take it on board. Yeah. But do you think government agencies, small business startups, scale-ups can benefit as well?
Yeah, I think it's for everybody.
Okay.
Including students, kids, parents, executives at whatever level they're in, people who are leaving uni and going into the workplace for the first time. It's good for particularly, I guess, the area that we're more talking about, the sole traders and the small business owners, because it's great for building resilience, self-esteem, overcoming setbacks, and it's all about getting out of your comfort zone. And I think if you might have a vision for your business, but if your comfort zone, you just stay in it all the time, your vision will probably be quite small, and you may not achieve a great deal. Whereas if you've got that growth mindset, you want to get out of your comfort zone, you make your vision bigger, and then you start getting out of your comfort zone to achieve those goals. So I think it's great for everybody.
Fantastic. Okay. So you've worked with so many companies. Are there any repeating patterns or common weaknesses that business owners seem to need to work on?
Yeah, one of the ones that I notice the most is not being customer or employee centric enough, and focused predominantly on profit. And I think more and more now you need to be not just focused on your profit and your customer, but also on your employees, and really making sure that even if it's a really small business, that you're really employee centric from day one. I would also say positioning is another one that I see a lot of people not positioning themselves right in the market. So they don't find where their space is, where they add the most value, and then creating all their marketing material around that. So that's something I noticed.
That's very interesting. We were actually at an event, a pop-up entrepreneur event, and for those listeners that are not in Queensland, we actually have a Queensland chief entrepreneur, Mark, and he was talking about when he was the MD owner of Blue Sky Investments, and he was saying that there was this great person in his team. She got sick, really sick, and wrote them an email saying, I understand I'm going to have to put in my resignation, et cetera, but I've loved working here.
Yeah.
And he rang the general manager and he said, she doesn't get it, does she? And he said, nah. And he rang her and said, no, this is for life. So if you have to take 3 years off, 5 years off, if you never come back, you're part of our business.
Wow.
Which is quite incredible.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
And so she eventually got better and she's still with the business. But I think that was a very powerful example of a business or a business owner who gets it, who absolutely is invested in their staff through sickness and through health, like a marriage.
Yeah. And that person will have very loyal employees.
Absolutely.
Forever.
I think they said they had 2% retention. 2%. No, so 98% retention.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2% turnover. So
Fantastic.
it's pretty amazing. Okay, so with growth mindset, what do you think are some of the myths or the misconceptions around that?
Well, a lot of people think growth mindset is a lot about just about effort, and about then the leaders just saying, oh, great effort, well done. And then a lot of people say that based on that some people might say they've put in a bit of effort and that's enough. I think it really has to be quite focused effort, and the effort has to have a plan. So I think that's probably the biggest misconception. Some people do say, oh yeah, it can create an environment where everyone's just patting everyone on the back for putting in a bit of effort, and it really isn't that at all. So that's probably the biggest misconception that I've come across. Okay,
so on that, do you mean this is the outcome that you want to achieve, and here's the steps that you're going to get there to achieve that?
Yeah, and it's just more about that individual actually really putting in some decent effort, and not just something that's quite slapdash.
Yes.
Just so they can say, I've put in the effort, and be recognised for that. So
yeah, that's good. You shouldn't just get a star just because you tried.
Exactly. It's got to be a decent try.
I like that. Okay. So I've been reading about this, and this has come up quite a bit. What's your opinion on, is having a growth mindset and being aware of your limitations contradictory?
Okay, so I gave a bit of thought to that question because I know we've touched on that before, haven't we?
Yes.
And my answer to that is this. I don't believe in limitations. I think that you've either got strengths or strengths in waiting. And it's whether you choose to develop those strengths in waiting or not. And I'm going to give you just a little example of where I've done something like that I found incredibly challenging. I'm not naturally a techie, finicky person. I don't like small details. I get very frustrated with it. So I would class that as a strength in waiting. I can choose to develop that or not develop it, or as a business owner, surround myself with people who are good at that. So I decided to design my own website, and that was so challenging for me, but I did it. And it was probably, even now, it's probably one of my biggest accomplishments, and it's such a small thing for other people, but for me it was huge, and it made me feel fantastic. It got me completely out of my comfort zone. I grew from it, and now I'm not so afraid of certain things within that area. So I think it's good to have your strengths in waiting, and every now and again just go and work on one.
Yes.
Just so they don't then become that, sort of really branch into then they are a limitation.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, no, that's fantastic. Great story. What are some practical tips that people could use right now? So after they listen to this podcast, they go back to their office, using some of the real basics of growth mindset that they could implement in their business.
Yeah. Okay, so probably the first thing is really to review your vision. Is it big enough? Is what I guess I would ask. Have you set something that really does make you step out of your comfort zone, or is your vision something that you're just very comfortable with? That might be fine for some people and not for others, so I would suggest reviewing that first. And then reflect and have a look where you are actually seeing a fixed mindset showing up in both your life, personal life and your business life. And then become just really effort and learning focused when you do come across challenges and setbacks. And every time you come across one, start being really aware of that and how you actually normally handle them, because you could see your fixed mindset coming up. And the more you're aware you are, the more you'll start to switch that around.
Fantastic. Okay. So how does then leadership and growth mindset link into each other? And how can a business use both strategies to get the most out of their staff?
Okay. So as a manager, what you can actually do is, instead of praising the end results, which obviously by the time they come in, it's too late to change any of the behaviours that either gave the good results or the bad results. So the idea really with the growth mindset leadership side of things is to praise what we call the ingredients of success. Things like effort, resilience, getting out of your comfort zone, taking on new challenges, collaboration, all the things that create an agile group of people working together. All of those things, you praise those, and then what you get after that generally is a repeat of that behaviour. So they're the behaviours that create the success. So that's a good way of basically trying to get the best out of your team.
Oh, that's great. I haven't heard that before. Sarah, we've just been thrown a wildcard question by my co-founder, Efren Show, about recruiting someone. How do we go about in a small business when hiring is so important and you can't afford to get it wrong? How do we hire someone who's got that growth mindset mentality? What sort of things will we be asking? What are we looking for? Talk us through how you'd go about it.
Sure. Well, and I think it's poignant to mention that Google are now recruiting learners. So that's something they're actively seeking out, which is the definition of a growth mindset, really. So you can throw some really off-the-wall questions into your interview, such as, what are you scared of in the workplace?
Great question.
And that really puts people on the spot, and they may give you an answer, they may not want to give you an answer, but really do try and draw it out of them. And then how would you overcome that fear? Because that is people getting out of their comfort zones, and it's very hard to quantify what someone's comfort zone is. Only they know that. So by asking them what they're scared of, hopefully that starts to bring it out, and then you can ask how they overcome that. And hopefully then they'll be able to give you some examples of things that they've overcome in the past. You can ask them, when did they recently get out of their comfort zone? What did they learn about themselves from that? When was the last time you faced a setback? What did you do? How did you get around it?
You know what mine is right now? PowerPoint presentations. I am absolutely terrible in PowerPoint, and I'm actually in that process. I was just about to give up actually today, thinking I've spent 4 hours trying to create one slide.
Yeah.
Like literally 4 hours, and I'm thinking
I hope it's a good looking slide.
Well, it is now, but I was thinking this is ridiculous. Like I'm investing time in something that I'm not very good in. So thanks for that. I want to keep persevering and make sure that's my that's what I'm scared of today, is to actually completing a PowerPoint presentation that will look good in front of people. And I think the great thing too about what you're talking about with the growth mindset, that it's not limited to locals or domestically. It's absolutely applies to your staff anywhere in the world.
Yes.
So if they're in the Philippines, like in our business, growth mindset
absolutely
is absolutely critical, right?
Yeah, and you know, the sooner you can get them in that mindset, the better, because you know, obviously you're working with businesses that are growing their teams over there, and if you can get somebody out there instigating that within their team early on, that would be really impressive.
Okay, fantastic. So we were just talking recently about Google. Look, Google seems like the best place on earth to work at. Quiet corners, slippery slides, ping pong tables, free lunch. Oh my God, that would be awesome. Meditation rooms. And it's all about creating a positive, engaged and successful work environment. Now, most of us, we don't have the budgets of Facebook and Google and Microsoft. So if you're a small business, what's your thoughts on how you can create a similar culture?
Okay, well, things like the quiet corners and the slippery slides and the ping pong tables, I have to say, I think unless you actually get the mental side of things right and the people in alignment with your business strategy, they're almost like a Band-Aid. So I think that you can put that in at the same time as you're changing your culture, but don't just do that.
Right.
So you have to really work on everybody's mindsets and, you know, really push towards all your people feeling really valued. Everybody's empowered, you know, they've all got purpose, you're all working towards a shared vision, and you make the environment fun as well. So you can't just put the physical in, you have to deal with the mental side of things first, I believe.
Yep, great answer. Excellent. And what I'm really curious about, Sarah, is you've been successful very early on, and it's that success in your career has continued. I'd love to know about the person who's made a tremendous impact on you as a leader, and if you can talk us through through who they are or what they've done for you or how
Yeah.
that's all come about. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, well, it's actually, I'm quite obsessed at the moment with Satya Nadella, CEO of Microsoft. I know I've touched on that before. I think what he's doing there is just absolutely phenomenal. And he takes a completely people-focused view on developing Microsoft globally. And he really says things like, if I haven't developed my people, I've done nothing. So to me, I really look up to that approach, and that's something I would love to see more globally, really, like more leaders following that sort of path.
Fantastic. Okay. And throughout your career being a leadership and growth mindset coach and facilitator, what is the one behaviour that you have seen derail leaders' careers?
Okay, there's probably a few answers I could give to why they don't progress so much. Things like lack of emotional intelligence, a leader who might lose trust in his or her team. So I think those are things that can really sabotage a leader. But the one thing I've seen probably derail more leaders is stress.
Really?
Yeah,
Stress?
yeah.
Wow.
So I would
wasn't
actually say
expecting that
that's
answer.
my number one, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, people don't tend to lead themselves or put as much focus on self-care when they're in a leadership role, and I think it's really imperative.
Sarah, what's the next evolution of growth mindset and leadership in your opinion?
My opinion would be that it's going to become a lot more mainstream, and I think we're going to be hearing a lot more about it. ANZ have just described it as being their next big thing that they're going to implement in the bank. London School of Economics are now using it. It's been picked up like wildfire across schools in the UK. It's in schools here, not all schools, but there's a number of schools now. So the younger generation is growing up with predominantly this growth mindset naturally ingrained.
Wow.
So us older ones better wash out.
That's it. We're going to have to get onto it. We're going to have to start implementing it. So a couple of quick questions to finish off the interview.
Yeah.
What does the phrase happy workplace mean to you?
Okay, so happy workplace for me means people who are empowered to be their very best. And they're not just sitting there functioning on a day-to-day. They're actually thriving in the workplace. They're deeply engaged and they've got a strong purpose and ownership of their role, and they know that they've got some space for creativity within that role. Big one for me is zero tolerance towards bullying. I feel very strongly about that. I think leadership now is really starting to change, and that is slowly being phased out. So I'd like to see that happen a lot quicker than it is. And an environment where people are not living for the next paycheck or the next holiday. They're actually really enjoying being there, and it's a lot of fun.
Fantastic answer. Love it. And for you, Sarah, what's the most fulfilling part of your job?
Seeing change, definitely. Like, I get so much feeling of fulfillment out of whether it be seeing a team develop and become more cohesive and working better together, or an individual managing themselves better, their stress levels dropping away, becoming a more effective leader. I just love seeing positive change. That's probably the most rewarding thing for me.
Fantastic. And what are common traits of people who've taken on growth mindsets swear by? So maybe someone like Michael Jordan, like what are these people saying?
Okay, so I would say reflect daily. So you have to sort of reflect on what did you learn? Where did you get out of your comfort zone? What did you learn? What could you do better tomorrow? Those sorts of questions, ask yourself. Look for the learning in absolutely everything, whether it be a setback, a challenge, criticism, and to get out of your comfort zone on, some people say a daily basis. I do it on a weekly basis. And but regularly.
And that's just work, or do you think doing it in your personal life helps inspire that in your work life?
Definitely, yeah. So even if you're someone who's very entrenched in your comfort zone, start mixing things up a little bit in your private life, and you'll see that start to filter across to your work life as well.
Fantastic. Thank you. Sarah, I have 2 first step questions. The first one, if you had to give someone advice on what they could do immediately to have a growth mindset, what are some practical tips they could do today to take on that growth and success mindset, and whether that's personally or in their business life?
Yeah. Okay, so first I'd say get a good coach, because then you've got somebody who you're accountable to. So it's all well and good listening to these things and thinking, yes, that's a great idea, and then not implementing anything. So a coach will hold you to account, and they'll be getting you out of your comfort zone regularly. I would be looking at what is your vision for the next year, and then really getting behind why is that your vision? What is it going to bring to you? How is it going to positively affect your life, your friends, your family, every aspect of your life, basically. And then basically look at some small steps that you can be taking early on in the piece to be moving towards that vision. And I would highly recommend listening to an audio called The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson. And it's all just about those positive little habits every day, repeated over time, the benefits they have. And also it does very heavily point out that if you don't do these habits, what also happens. And I think that will be quite inspiring to listen to.
Okay, next on my reading list.
Yep.
I'm definitely going to buy that. So for our listeners, Sarah is one of the very few growth mindset and leadership gurus in Australia who conducts some fabulous workshops, both personally and on a corporate level. So if you are desperate to take on the growth mindset, we'll have all of Sarah's details in our show notes, basically everywhere that you can possibly think of, so you can contact her and change your life now. Not next week, now. So secondly, with small to medium-sized businesses, what are some company-wide efforts or programs that management or owners can implement to develop that growth mindset culture, foster innovation, and just create extra opportunities for their staff without too much, I guess, without diverting too much time and money from what you're meant to be doing every day? Yeah.
I mean, we run workshops where they're not like your traditional workshop, for example, and I think it's a good approach for a business to take, because then you get a lot of people in at once.
Yes.
And it's a joint movement to a certain extent, and we work on, and whether you consider our workshops or other people's workshops, just make sure that they really get down to the belief system, because that's where it all starts. So that's what we focus on initially. We really get everybody to focus on working on, what are their limiting beliefs, what's holding them back in life first. And then we create a really interactive and deeply engaging workshop where everybody is actually getting out of their comfort zone during the workshop.
Wow.
So it's a highly bonded experience as well. So people leave generally really energized and pumped, and it's just a great way to sort of get everybody together. And whether you run these things yourselves or you're getting an outside facilitator, you can just basically give them a bunch of scenarios where they're all getting out of their comfort zone. It would be quite easy to facilitate yourselves as well. So, that could be a good way to go. Or team coaching is another approach. If you want to change mindsets with a group, just put them through team coaching.
Fantastic. And if you're a business owner who, look, you've got a fixed mindset, you want to have a growth mindset, but you don't, or you might have it in certain parts of your life, and you want to work on yourself first before you get the team on board. Do you offer coaching one-on-one, or how do you offer that service, or how can people get that service?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I offer individual coaching. We do individual coaching, group coaching, leadership teams, whatever it might be. But we do individual coaching, which can be a combination of business coaching, leadership coaching, and life coaching.
Wow. Okay. And how long, if I was interested, how long do you normally work with someone? Is it is it 12 months, or how quickly do you notice people taking on change that affects their business? Like, I'd love to hear how that all works.
Yeah. We generally recommend not less than 6 months.
Yes.
We have programs that you can either have a single session, you can have 6 sessions, 6 months, or a year. We recommend the 6-month program as a minimum.
Yes.
To see real sort of transformational change.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. And are you working more predominantly on that corporate or business goal of where they want to see their business and then work backwards?
Yes.
Is that traditionally how it works? Okay.
Yeah.
Fantastic. All right. Well, thank you so much for being on the First Step podcast. It's been fascinating.
Thank you for having me.
No, our pleasure. And we look forward to hearing some more stories from you, some success stories from our listeners.
Thank you for listening to the First Step podcast with Narissa Show. For more great stories on those who took the first step to change their world, subscribe to our podcast and leave us a review. See you next time.